As I predicted, this Gang of Six bill is a complete and utter joke. Earlier in the week, the president empowered congressional leaders to come up with a bipartisan deal to address the status of those 800,000 or so dreamers that Obama, through executive action, protected from deportation. Remember, there were some prerequisites: build the wall, add more border agents and immigration judges, and end chain migration and the visa lottery. But today, Senators Dick Durbin, Lindsey Graham, and Jeff Flake unveiled their great compromise. The moment I heard it was those three involved, I knew it was going to be bad, by the way. If you're wondering why the president has already, in the words of Dick Durbin, personally rejected the bill, I'll tell you why. It would increase chain migration, violating one of the president's non-negotiables. Number one, the DACA recipients get citizenship and can then sponsor relatives and their parents for renewable 3-year periods. The money for border enforcement is, as I predicted, a pittance. $2.3 billion is all Durbin, Graham, and Flake offered. And by the way, only $1.6 billion will go toward the construction of the wall or the double fencing. And what are they supposed to build the wall with? Styrofoam for that much money? A real border wall is expected to cost about $20 billion. And while Congress anguishes to find the money, well, by the way, remember, we're going to rebuild Puerto Rico for about $50 billion, and illegals cost us all in about $113 billion a year. So do not tell me we don't have the money to enforce our own border. The bipartisan proposal placed new constraints on the Department of Homeland Security that will hamper the actual building of the wall. And this really torches me. The visa lottery would simply be transferred to temporary protective status, meaning those visas would result in even more lower-skilled immigrants coming into the country. The bar is even lower for that group. So I suggest that the great bipartisan working group sharpen their pencils and return to the table. This will not do. No way, no how. Again, it would increase chain migration, it would lead to more immigration, and it would spike the number of low-skilled immigrant workers. This is a bill the president should love, right? Oh, the president of Mexico, that is. Republicans should run, not walk away from it. Just like in 2006, 2007, 2013, and 2014, the open borders bipartisan cartel tries to trick the American people every time. Well, guess what? We're not Charlie Brown and you're not Lucy. But Donald Trump is not going to be led down this garden path on this one. No way. During the presidential election, Lindsey Graham got 1% of the vote in his home state of South Carolina during the primaries. Yes, 1%. And Jeff Flake himself is so unpopular in Arizona, he was forced to retire rather than face the electorate. Let's face it, the immigration views of Flake and Graham are not popular, and the president should not tie his bright political future to these walking anvils. They're just going to sink him right down. For a real perspective on immigration, the president should listen to the voices of the silent majority that I heard loud and clear once again on my radio show today.
These days, you don't find one African American on the work site in any Atlanta subdivision. It's a shame. It's all Hispanic. It's all illegal.
Their equity price, again, is built on illegal labor. There are plentitude of illegal labor, holding wages down for the Americans.
A lot of guys think that, oh, why don't these guys get off the corner of Chicago, or Chicago is such a carnage for all this crime and all this gun violence, but there's so many illegals in Chicago right now. It's so hard for anyone to get a job.
The people know how high the stakes are right now, and they're already living with the results of open borders policies, by the way, that were supported by the same politicians pushing this bad deal on Trump. America, my friends, is being and has been completely transformed culturally, economically, and electorally by illegal and chain migration. And by the way, MS-13 is still proliferating. This is precisely what Americans rejected in the last presidential election. It's one of the major reasons Trump won. Nobody wants America to be the next
hole in country holes or holes.
I guess we decided to bleep that. If what Graham and Flake are pushing is so popular, then and it's so right, it's so common sense, why are they all so afraid to come on this show and defend their proposal? We get no callbacks from any of them. I wonder why. And that's the angle. Joining me now for reaction from West Palm Beach, Florida, is best-selling author Ann Coulter. And with me here in Washington, D.C. is Mark Krikorian, the Executive Director for the Center for Immigration Studies. And also in Washington is Jonathan Swan. He's a national political reporter for Axios. Jonathan, let's start with you. I did some reporting tonight before the show on what happened in that meeting. Without belaboring the point on what the president said inside, this bill does not go close at all, in my mind, to reaching those non-negotiables that President Trump has set out very clearly.
Well, you saw it from the start. I looked up at the television this morning and it said, Flake, we have struck a deal on immigration. You could not have had a worse messenger for that deal than Jeff Flake, for a start. Secondly, as soon as I knew that it was Flake, Durbin and Graham, I was like, okay, well, where's Tom Cotton? Where's Perdue? Where are some of these other people that the president wants to listen to? And the way today played out was Durbin and Graham were going to go to the White House. They had it all planned out. They were going to meet with the president. They show up, they go into the cabinet room, and the doors swing open, and in walks Cotton, Perdue, Goodlatte. And they freaked. They were like, oh, okay. And then the real conversation happens, which is obviously that the deal that was presented this morning.
I mean, but is Durbin and Flake, Ann Coulter, I want to go to you. Do they think the president, they must think the president is stupid. They're going to walk into this meeting and try to buffalo Trump on immigration on these points? Jeff Flake didn't vote for President Trump, and he wrote a whole book trashing him. And he's like, well, I have the idea, Mr. President. We're going to increase chain migration and do all these stuff. And take it away.
Yes, and as you say, he's so popular in his home state, he can't run for re-election. These politicians, they are like drug addicts. I don't know what the American people have to do. 3 times Congress has tried to slip through amnesty in the last 10 years in the dead of night. Luckily, it's now people are paying attention. And all 3 times it was shut down, not by a major network, not by one particular politician. Somehow it leaked out, and the American people shut down congressional switchboards. We just put a reality TV star developer in the White House. Some would say he's not the typical president. Why? Because he talked about Mexican rapists and promised to build a wall. I thought on November 8th, all these Republicans in Washington need to see like trucks of Depends being sent in because they'd be so afraid of what the public was saying to them. I mean, my final thing I would say about this is, remember Ross Perot had this idea, it just occurred to me when you were talking about it, where you'd have like national referenda on certain issues. I so wish we could have a secret ballot national referenda on immigration, on any amnesty, on Dreamers amnesty, on amnesty for anyone, on the wall. I mean, I think we did that on November 8th, but wow, the Republicans want their donors and the Democrats want the votes.
I mean, Mark Krikorian, I actually am surprised. They didn't even try to dress this up as something that's different. It's actually worse than the Gang of 8 bill. It's actually worse than that was in many respects because it directly increases chain migration by allowing these 800,000 to sponsor uncles, aunts, adult children, all this, and then the parents get to stay for 3-year revolving, rotating periods of time.
I mean, when I read about this, it really seemed to me almost consciously contemptuous of what the president wanted to do. Look, the whole...
Do you think they're trying to blow it up on purpose?
No. I think they think he really is a moron and they can push him around.
I mean, it's unbelievable. They actually, when he said, I'll do whatever you guys want, when he made that offhand comment.
They took that literally?
I guess they did, but they've been working on this, Mark, for months. And this is what these bozos, I'm sorry to be uncharitable, come up with?
And you know what was maybe really struck me was for 15 years, the whole argument for the Dreamers and DACA is that they didn't commit a crime. They came as kids, weren't legally responsible. Well, this bill amnesties their parents, too, who didn't come as children, who brought them here. I mean, it is, I thought it was a joke at first. I have to admit, I did not think this was serious.
Now, Jonathan, Congressman Pramila Jayapal from Washington State made a comment today directly at this issue of chain migration. Let's watch.
This idea that chain migration is real is really only something that people who know nothing about immigration will say, because chain migration doesn't, for the most part, exist. It took me 18 years to get my citizenship. If I had tried to get my parents to come here as a U.S. citizen, it would have taken many more years.
Jonathan, doesn't exist at all. It's only 44% of all green card recipients this past year were from chain migration, and another 23%, Mark, were from other family-based immigration. Right. Only 18% were jobs-related.
I don't even know what to make of that. I was sort of my eyes were bulging watching that clip.
But that's how the immigration in the United States has ballooned over the years, and it's ballooned beyond what anyone had ever thought. And Anne, you know, we have this story that we're going to get to next segment about something that just happened in Denver, Colorado. Now, as you know, media outlets do not dig for immigration status on these crimes. So you have to, like, call, like, 3 or 4 people, you get transferred, and then finally you find someone who said, yeah, by the way. So we did that. We're going to reveal that next segment. But just the issue of crime alone is something that we have to keep front and center, because that directly relates to the American people.
Yes, well, that's how Adios America became my book on immigration, became a book on immigration. It was only going to be 1 chapter, and I go to look up, you know, what would any country want to know about the people it's bringing in? Legal immigrants we're talking about here. Well, how many are in prison, and what countries are they from? No, the government specifically suppresses that information. The media isn't asking any questions, and then they turn around and blow up at a comment like Trump's. Well, from the information in Adios America, actually Haitians do seem to be wildly overrepresented in our prison system, and Norwegians really quite underrepresented. And I notice only one side of this debate wants to know the facts. It's our side who keeps saying, hey, could you just count? It's not that hard to figure out how many immigrants are in prison. Could you count them?
Right. Well, there's a story coming out tomorrow specifically about Arizona, which will be hitting tomorrow. Jonathan, who has the president's ear on immigration in the White House? Stephen Miller is one of the last of the, I think, original Trumpites in the White House. There's a couple of others, but not many, just on this particular issue. Is Stephen Miller, does he have influence? I know the president is his own man. He runs his own show. But Miller is one of the experts on this issue.
Yeah, Miller has a lot of influence, and he's really the only one in the White House who actually really understands this issue and has studied it in a very careful way. John Kelly obviously cares about border enforcement, but he doesn't know immigration policy like Stephen Miller does. But, you know, everyone obsesses over the palace intrigue and the infighting. This is actually one of those issues where Trump himself has very strong, hardwired instincts and has done for a long time, immigration and trade. And so, yes, there are moderate liberals in there like Gary Cohn and Jared Ivanka who would be horrified by the comment he made today, but they've basically given up trying to really, they know where this is heading and where the president's instincts
And Mark,
are.
the president's instinct on this issue was always derided and reviled by the establishment. They called him racist, xenophobic. They're still doing it. And they'll do it even if he agreed to something like this. They did it yesterday. So the president sticks to his instincts on this. If you want to get rid of chain migration, then maybe he has to do some deal on DACA, but it has to be verifiable. There have to be real triggers. It can't be this. You know, the Goodlatte bill, we don't have time to get into it, is a lot closer.
Oh, it's a much better bill, there's no question. And the president's instincts, the way I think about it, is that he's sort of the man on the street on immigration. That's he's in the White House, but his views
Listen to those callers.
Listen
to those callers. Those African-American and 2 women.
Right.
Young African-American male in Chicago, and I believe it was 1 woman and a man. And those were representative, by the way, the calls into my show today. These are people, a lot of them are like, I'm not even political. I don't even follow Fusion GPS. But on this issue, I've seen my opportunities shrink, and I've seen the country change, and we didn't vote for any of this. I'm not racist. I believe in immigration, but this is wrong. And I'm telling you, people are mad. I don't care what they say about DACA polls. People are livid about this, and I think the president gets it. I really do. Everybody, by the way, great segment.